Somebody said, most important question, are you a catgirl? Yes, I think I'm a sun catgirl. Maybe moon catgirl.
You're keeper
I
of
don't
the
know.
sun. Keeper of the sun, Mikote.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I mean, that's... I was thinking of going for like a dragon or something, but I could not make a character on Zodiark, so I had to go with an old, basically meme catgirl character that I created and did not touch at all. But you know what? I'm actually having fun thus far. So I was doing that. Basically, like, actually reading the quest text is important. Now, the game provides, it shows quest text to you via conversations that you click through like it's a JRPG, like it's an RPG.
Because it is a JRPG, yeah.
Now, that is so much more effective than how WoW does it by default, which is just click an NPC, wall of text.
Yeah.
And if you want to solve that problem within World of Warcraft...
So, as you were saying about the narrative of Gridania, all the little things coming together into the bigger things.
Yes,
all
that
the
worked quite
experience
well.
of that. Yeah. So, here's the thing about that. That's Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah.
It never stops that.
That's the thing.
It just also has massive moments as well.
It seems like it's, I'm playing like the worst bit, but it just kind of goes better and better and better and better.
It gets, oh man, it is. I don't know how to put this. I was relatively unsold on ARR when I finished it.
All right.
I was like, right, this is good, but it's not great. This is fine. This is perfectly okay. And then now I want to go back into the past and punch myself in the head for not keeping up with FF, because 5.3 is, after finishing 5.3, which is, that's when all of the expansion stuff ends. 5.4 and onwards is lead up to Endwalker, and then some other side stuff. It is my second favorite game of all time, without even thinking about the MMO part.
That's
in terms
pretty
of just
big.
the story it tells. The one game that beats it is Nier Automata overall. Like it is,
yes.
it is completely insane, and it's all based off that same foundation. It's all that same foundation of just, here's a couple people, they've got problems. Are you going to help them? You go, fuck it, I'll give you a hand. Every time you show up somewhere new, it's never, oh, hello, venerated one, don't do any bullshit, here's the big problem. It is just like, right, someone's there, and it's part of the main story quest. It's not just side quests where it's like, all right, go help this person with their like menial thing or their trivial like tasks and stuff. And it's a lot of it is like, people here aren't really trained for combat. You're really strong. Go sort them out. So you fight stuff, and then someone's like, go pick some things while you're there. And it's just consistently being treated like an adventure is absolutely insane.
I've liked that so
it's
far,
completely
actually.
insane.
Yeah.
And they keep that the entire way, even as the character builds up a reputation as being, the hero of the story. It is still, like, I saw, this is a long time ago, or the post was from a long time ago. I think it might have been from around Heavensward time. Maybe it was early Stormblood. But someone on Reddit posted saying, your main character is barely a character sometimes. You're basically you're a tool. You're like a gun in the back pocket of other characters, and you're just used to point and shoot things. Like, oh, we've got problem solved, pull out the main character.
Yeah.
And through that, especially when they start to add dialogue choices later on, that really feel meaningful and go back to previous things. They're not massive. They change the next line of dialogue, but nothing else, essentially. Where somebody, you can make you could say a funny thing, and the character will respond going, you're such a bell end. Anyway, off we go. And it just works so perfectly, because you're the one who's done all this immense stuff as all these other characters are doing main character things. And it is absolutely unbelievable overall. It is unbelievable. And it's purely from that thing of, they started it there, of learn about these people, learn about this place, and just do that over and over again.
It's that thing where I get a humongous feeling that it's a slow build that is going to pay off.
It is,
which I mean, I know it pays off basically from everybody that I've heard.
It really does.
The duties, which are kind of like scenarios that you're bumped into for like key plot moments, they've been good too, and you go into them really quite seamlessly. I know it'll be way better in the future, but what I've really noticed is like, even the Realm Reborn cinematography, cutscene stuff, it is less jarring than World of Warcraft Shadowlands is.
It really is.
Way less jarring. And I think that just goes to show how much better those RPG elements are handled by Shadowbringers. And basically, the World of Warcraft stuff looks completely fucking incompetent in comparison. And
Really
I've seen some in-game cutscenes that happen in Stormbringer that I think you showed me, or Stormblood, it was like a year ago. And those absolutely, you know, it was like, they looked like actual video game cutscenes that you get in a, you know, a video game with a campaign that you play, but it was there in this MMO. You compare it to the WoW ones where, you know, you've got Tyronda's mouth, you know, doing something, her voice is doing something completely different, and the animations looking all janky, and also a thing that makes the WoW ones look completely embarrassing. Their art style doesn't match the game they're making at all for World of Warcraft sometimes. Now, I don't mean the art style of the world. Of course, a part of art style is animation, how things are animated. So the acting of WoW's characters is completely incongruent with the narrative. You know, you've got Laura Bailey giving this big performance, and then Jaina with these humongous eyes, this incredibly overexpressive face. And you look at that and you're like, wow, what is going on? This is a weird cartoon, but the voice acting doesn't actually match it. Nothing, you know, it all feels bad and weird. Whenever Blizzard do, you know, those in-game cutscenes they started doing in Legion, and they've never looked good. They look better now than they did in Legion, but actually it's weird. In Legion, Blizzard, it's like they knew they looked bad, so they use them sparingly and they play to their strengths. But now Blizzard will just flat out give you a close-up of a character's face and it'll look terrible. And it's also like cinematography seemingly done by just a random game designer. And like, look, for an example, for our game development, a recent build that we reviewed, very happy with it, very, very happy with it overall. But some of the staging and, you know, placement of characters and composition was clearly, you know, it's stuff that, I mean, we know it wasn't done by the art director because it wasn't done by the art director, and it's a very early passive thing, so it's fine. But it's one of those things where it's like, that's important. It's important to get those things right. WoW completely fucks that up. And Final Fantasy XIV seemingly is doing a better job than WoW now in A Realm Reborn. I know it does a far better job based on the Stormblood stuff you've told me. And then from what I understand, by the time you hit Shadowbringers, they had massively upgraded a bunch of their camera tech and stuff to the point where it is truly incredible looking. So that's rough for Blizzard. They have not made the investments to compete with Final Fantasy XIV narratively. And then I think also in Final Fantasy XIV, they are, I think, obviously way more willing to do things slowly and to earn their big moments. Whereas it feels like Blizzard loves their own lore and thinks that they deserve their big moments. That's basically it. It feels like Blizzard thinks they deserve their big moments, whereas Final Fantasy XIV thinks it needs to earn its big moments. That's what I've got from people so far, and it's definitely meshed with my experience of the game thus far as well.
That's entirely it. An expansion will be, you know, over 3 patches over like a year and a bit. They'll drop stuff at the start of an expansion, and then it'll pay off at the end. But even better than that, there are so many callbacks and things that I remember happening in 2.0, characters that are important, events that are important, things that have happened. And sometimes they're a little bit kind of just call back to in a sense. But after finishing Shadowbringers, it's like, no, there are things that they have told you at the start of 2.0 that if you don't remember them, your experience will be worse. And not in the way at keep all this shit in your head, but in the case of this is a linear story that they have told. They've told it piecemeal because they've had to, because they can't tell it all in one go. But they've told it over, 2013, 2019? They've told it over 7 years. And it has been absolutely remarkable. I think that specifically the recent main scenario quest writers are they are next level. Like they aren't just good writers for video games or good writers for an MMO. They are literally good writers. Like especially with stuff in 5.3, there's a level to it where I had to stop and I was like, fuck me. That is unreasonable.
There's something we need to engage with here. Blizzard are good at making worlds and building lore. I do not think Blizzard are good writers. And I've never understood why people think that Blizzard are this renowned renowned storytellers.
Yeah.
I want to dive into that point a little bit more. I mean, you look at, say, StarCraft 2.
Yeah.
And how they, I mean, look, I kind of like the StarCraft 2 story for what it is, and like it's fun to go through, but it certainly does not live up to the promise of StarCraft 1 and what it established. You know, basically StarCraft 2, I mean, you got is basically Jim and his relationship.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, we kind of know there's very real life parallels with Matsson's life that he has admitted are actually what drove a bunch of that creative direction, which of course I don't really like how it went down that way. But you know, there's that. Like Diablo 3, I mean, fucking hell, what awful storytelling that game has. What a silly disaster.
I don't remember a fraction of it. I played that game like crazy. Like.
Yeah. And then, you know, in World of Warcraft, I mean, Blizzard have made bizarre narrative decisions for ages.
Yeah.
You know, their world building, their lore stuff has been cool, but their actual storytelling in game has always been shoddy. You look at Battle for Azeroth, where I mean, they raced through their lore so fast and were so bad at really explaining things well. It's like the only good Blizzard storytelling happens in transmedia narrative, not in-game. So I guess for me, it's like super jarring to play an MMO and have good storytelling within the MMO and not just as a part of the transmedia narrative and broad world-building facts that are interesting. So, you know, it's like the Starfying thing that everybody liked.
Yeah.
That was like a short movie that people watched and had an emotional reaction to. That wasn't video game that people played and had an emotional reaction to. So it's, you know, it's interesting. It's interesting. I don't really know how Blizzard can fix up this problem because it seems institutionally they're just sitting there being like, oh yeah, you know, we're here to make awesome moments and epic narratives. But it's like they need to slow down and spend more time setting their things up. Sort of in recent times, they have just blasted through so much lore that it's like their storytelling hasn't been able to keep up with the pace of like the broad narrative movement they've been making. So that's an issue. And I think there's a space where a lot of people, if they can find themselves able to go and play something Japanese that feels different and get into it, and actually have that suspension of disbelief, then I think it will be a lot more successful for not the lore side, but it'll be more successful for the storytelling side, I think. Yeah,
that is exactly what Nicky experienced going through, because obviously he's a big anti-weeb, and he's just like, now that he is happy to suspend his disbelief and has done it, he's like, no, this is absolutely insane. If you can just let those preconceptions of what this is or what you think this might be go, it is absolutely, it's next level. It's next level. Yeah. And World of Warcraft, I don't know how they can solve it without completely rethinking everything they do and write and all of their pacing. It's a case where they need to look at their 10-year plan or 5-year plan or the plan for next expansion and just throw it out.
They need to stop having the level up experience of their expansions have so little bearing in the end game.
Yep.
Like, there's a bunch of flavor and context, it's all fine and interesting, but it's almost as if 2 expansions in a row, it's like you hit max level and then things actually kick off, because it's like, you know, we've learned a few factoids and stuff, but for Zoval and Sylvanas as actual characters, you know, people with motivations, we learned kind of nothing about them as we leveled up.
Yeah, it was just introducing you to all this other stuff.
Yeah, so it's like, what if all of that time where we were dealing with, you know, killing bugs in Ardenweald, we actually were learning about the characters that would be core to this expansion. So, and then I think back to, you know, all that time we spent in Kulturas and Zandalar.
Yeah.
And like, I kind of get we were solving those problems, but it's like that was an expansion about Battle for Azeroth, and I felt like the Battle for Azeroth happened. We weren't there. We were just we were then world building these two islands that we, you know, would sort of not end up being that important, really.
Yeah.
So it's that weird thing of Blizzard's just like, bam, bunch of stuff and a time-gated campaign for the story that actually matters. Whereas I'd rather they were just like, you know, slow burn through the entire thing.
Yeah.
And then not having that time-gated Covenant campaign, because I think, I mean, I don't know what FF does, but certainly it's hard to reconcile a well-paced narrative with 30 minutes or whatever, 40 minutes a week.
See, What it does, like, I am not aware of any time gating it does outside of this isn't out yet. Unless you consider go do this fight time gate, because the MSQs will just go right. It is now logical that there's a dungeon that you're going to do because there's a thing to do in it. There's a problem to solve in it, or you need something from it. So you go, you party up, you go into that dungeon.
Yeah.
And then same with trials, where the end bosses aren't like raids that you don't engage with at all. The end bosses of like all your content of your patches are trials, as they're called, which are, here's a single boss in a room, you queue for it in the duty finder. It's not extremely hard, but it's difficult. If you don't do mechanic correct, you die. Most mechanics are telegraphed in a way that if like you learn the design language, you know, don't stand in orange. For the first couple boss fights, if you don't stand in orange, you're fine.
Is it maybe a good analogy here, perhaps Onyxia or Sartharian, as in kind of one boss that the raid can go to, versus a current WoW world boss?
Don't even dare.
Like, is that our
yes,
sort of
it is
difference?
very much Onyxia. It is very much Onyxia. It is very much like the last boss of Crucible of Storms in isolation.
Gotcha.
It is a raid boss that's a little bit simple, that you queue up to, you go in, that's it. That's it. There's no like, but that stuff usually is an intro cutscene that will like the at the start everyone waits for you because they're forced to in trials. It's literally you can't pull the boss until people have either skipped the cutscene or watched it all. And then they usually end with an ending cutscene, and then you'll be teleported beside the entrance to the raid, or the trial, because you're supposed to, like, basically it brings you up to a point where it goes, here's the fight.
Yeah.
And then there's a thing you can click that will open the duty finder for you. You can do it from anywhere else. You can go do other things while you wait in queue. But then at the end of it, teleports you back there. So it is this like seamless bit of, here's MMO boss fight in the middle of your single player JRPG. Because I saw someone in chat there say, cool. I'm not going to scroll up to find it because it's long gone. But someone's saying it sounds like very much just a single player RPG. Where's the MMO? That's one of the kind of biggest things about it. It's both. That's what I kind of don't get, how it's so, like, it is, to me, it feels miraculous that I finish playing, like, however many hours of single player content in Shadowbringers, like 30, 20 something, 30, of just, I am leveling, but I'm not leveling. I'm never leveling. I'm never thinking.
You're playing a story in a game.
Yeah, I'm playing through a story. And then at the end of that story, I am level 80. I've had an incredible experience. I've had 30 hours of this shit is absolutely incredible.